Hello and welcome to Season 10, Episode 2 of the Data Governance Podcast. And today I am having a great conversation with Jamie Knowles from ER Studio. Now, you may remember Jamie was on the last season, Episode 11, where we had a fabulous conversation about data architecture and its relationship with data governance. And we've had so many downloads of that episode and some really great feedback that I just knew that Jamie would be a really good person to have back to discuss all things data products. So let's dive in and find out what they are and why we should care about them. Today's episode is brought to you by ER Studio, the trusted name in data modeling. Just like building a home, managing data architecture is impossible without a blueprint. ER Studio is your guide to clarity, collaboration, and compliance. Built for data professionals, ER Studio provides the essential tools to visualize, document, and manage your enterprise data. Visit erstudio.com to learn more how ER Studio integrates all your source systems, ensures governance at every level, streamlines data sharing across your organization, and even automatically converts your logical data models into physical models. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Data Governance Podcast. Now, I'm really thrilled that I'm joined again by Jamie Knowles, the product director at ER Studio. Now, Jamie came on the podcast in the last season and we had a really good discussion about data architecture and data governance. And we've had such great feedback from that I just wanted to have Jamie back on the podcast anyway. But then it occurred to me that Jamie was a really good person to ask about data products, because I don't know about you, but everybody's talking about them. And I think it's clear to me that not everybody really understands what they are, why they're useful. And I just thought Jamie would be the perfect person to answer all these questions. So I'm really thrilled that we're going to do like a mini series within this podcast season on data products. So welcome, Jamie. Lovely to have you back.
Good to see you again.
You too. So, well, we shouldn't really beat about the bush, should we really? The obvious question we've got to kind of address first is, so what are data products?
Very good. Good question. So it's a new approach to data analytics, and came from an approach by a lady called Zhamak Dehghani, called data mesh. And really, a data product is just a packaged collection of data.
So, I know the answer to this, but I know what other people have said to me when I've tried to explain what data products are is, surely that just sounds like a data set or perhaps a report we've had from MIT, and we've kind of had them for as long as we've had data, haven't we? So what's different about a data product as opposed to a data set?
So this is where it gets exciting. So it's a much more business focused thing. So in the past, data sets were really an IT driven thing, whereas data products are they're they're created by domain teams. So the organizations split into different domains. We might have HR, might have sales, and each domain is responsible for building a series of products. And it's really exciting because in the past, I think data was kind of a second-class citizen. It's a very IT thing. Yeah, we just create some data and we all just use it and get on with it. And if we want some governance, then people will sort of govern it later on in the day. Whereas the new world of data products, we're sort of thinking, we're crafting these products to be sort of business facing. They have value. They're reusable and consumable. And they have a good solid contract assigned to them. So we're thinking about the sort of the content and the contract that goes with it. So the policies and the rules right up front.
So I really like the idea of what you were saying about them being reusable, because if you think about a standard data set, or perhaps you're the MI analytics team and I've asked you for a report, you write a report to my specifications and I do whatever I do with it, but the next person could come along and ask for something that's more or less the same, but somebody else on your team is now going to create that from scratch again, whereas actually we could say, here's this data product that is everything we know about, I don't know, our customers. And then you don't have to keep creating reports. I can actually access it, but so can colleagues on other teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was one of the dangers of the sort of previous world of analytics. We have these sort of ad hoc requests for data, and every request would end up with a sort of bespoke, custom created data set. And that led to data swamps, which is difficult to manage, is highly risky to the organization, difficult to govern, etc. Whereas, again, sort of shifting things back to thinking of data as a product. So every product has to sort of earn its own right, and it has to deliver value. It has to be in demand. If products aren't in demand, why are we wasting the time maintaining them and looking after them? So we've got this beautiful catalogue of well defined products that are in demand that deliver value.
Yes, no, that sounds good. So I think we might have strayed on to the answer to the next one in what you were just saying. But, why do you like data products? Why are they a good thing? And what's different than these data sets, that we've had for years?
Yeah, so I think it's about value, and the whole point of data product delivery and data mesh is quality and efficiency. So quality is probably the big one. So we're thinking in the right way when we design our data products. Um, Things like standardization are really important. And last time we talked a lot about the role of the data architect and that sort of design process. So I think an important part of data product delivery is having good design in there. So we're doing the design at a business level. We're taking those requirements and we're crafting a design that forms part of the contract in business language before we do any developments and any delivery. So we're going to ensure that, yeah, the design that we've put in place delivers against those requirements. And again, as I was saying last time about the design process, including architecture. So that reusability is really important. So we want to ensure consistency across the products within a domain and across domains. So if we've got the notion of customer, which is sort of common when we talk about. So if every data product has a slightly different sort of language and terminology for customer and its attributes, if we identify a customer in a different way, we use a different name or definition of a customer, it's danger, danger. So if we can have that sort of standardization across our products and then across domains, then I think we're going to get something really valuable. We're going to end up with something of high quality.
Again, I can see that perhaps we might stop some, the discussions and debates that everybody has when somebody says, how many customers have we got? And we all have multiple different answers because there's so many different reports in existence that say the same thing. But if we have a customer data product, then we all agree. And so do you think, from the way you were just describing it, Jamie, you were making me think that perhaps it improve almost it forces the improvement of data literacy in our business users because they have to be able to articulate their needs. Because I think my experience of perhaps asking an analytics team for a report is the user asks for the report very poorly. The analyst does their best to pull together a report, gives it back to the user who goes, well, I didn't want that. And what's that? And where's so and so? And it's a very iterative, very time intensive way of doing it. Whereas you're making it sound like we're going to make our business users articulate to us what their requirements are and create a product that meets their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all that sort of thinking and clarification needs to be done up front before we build anything. I think that's absolutely key. And another thing I like about it is the notion of governance is done right at the start. I think you might agree with this. So in the modern analytics world at the moment, sort of, yeah, we're going to go and build the warehouse. We're going to go and build a load of reports. If you want to do some governance, then sort of, yeah, you come along afterwards and tell us what we've got to do with this data. So I think the data product thing is right at the start when we're crafting and designing that product. Again, the contractors clearly defining what the content is, and then all the policies and rules, the definitions, well, the classification is done right up front. So as we then building and delivering those products, we know exactly what to do.
So obviously, as a data governance geek, that's making me smile. This is really, really good. So obviously, I've got my views on this, but you brought up governance first, so it's not my fault. I just feel like we have to follow that one up. Is so how do data products affect data governance teams? How are we going to have to? Do we going to have to change what we do? Um,
That's a good question, and something sort of we've been thinking about and talking about with customers. So I think governance roles and domain roles might change slightly, but not a huge amount. So the basic principles of data mesh or data product delivery is first of all splitting the organization into these domains. So again, sales, etc. And I think we did that in the past with governance. So each part of the organization would have sort of their team of data stewards that thought about the governance of data that relates to them. They're the subject matter experts. I think the only difference in the world of data product delivery is we're going to have this role of data product owner that sort of thinks about, decides what products they're going to produce and crafts those products. So I don't know how you feel about this sort of. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was trying to restrain myself from jumping in then. So I think the very first client that I helped, who was implementing data mesh, obviously said, "Oh, we're doing data mesh and we're going to do data governance over our data products." And I went, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." And I was upfront and transparent about the fact that it would be the first time that I'd done data governance for this. And we would have all these debates, and I felt quite strongly that I still needed my underlying good framework of data governance roles and responsibilities, but I probably needed to give some data governance responsibilities to the data product owner, which is the new role that comes into being when we have data products. But we had some really, to be fair, really interesting discussions, because I think if you don't have those discussions and debates, I didn't know why I had my view. They didn't know why they had their views. You just kind of jump, you go with your gut feeling. And my client was very adamant that they didn't want data owners and they didn't want data stewards. And, so to take the data owner first, I said, well, you've got a data product owner, and they said yeah, so they can be a data owner. And so my first problem with them, they weren't as anywhere as senior as I like data owners to be. But my second problem was, let's say customer data, because as you say, it's an easy one, everybody gets their head around it. Is customer data going to only ever be in one data product? Because if it's going to be in more than one data product and that's potentially owned by more owners, how can one of them be the owner of that source data? I feel like they own the product. They own this crafted thing that's been created, not the source data. And my other question and pushback to them was, so is all data in your organization going to end up in data products? And they went, well, no, it's not valuable for all data to be in it. And we went, so you're saying it doesn't matter about that, then that won't be governed. They won't have data owners. And so we agreed we'd have data owners, but they really pushed back and refused me saying we needed data stewards, because they said that they felt quite strongly the data product owner could do that role because they had to be a subject matter expert in the data, otherwise they weren't right to be the data product owner. And I felt uncomfortable, but the adage, customer's always right. So we'd had this discussion, we'd worked our way through it, and they said that was fine. I think my engagement ended, and then I caught up with them about 6 months later. And they were giving me this update, and it was amazing how many more data products they were getting requests for. And the first few had been almost like demonstrating the art of the possible. The team worked out what they thought would be good products, chose the right business stakeholders, but they'd gone so well that the business were coming to them and going, could we have such and such? And so we were having this really great catch up. And then she went, oh, there is just one thing I need to tell you. And I went, what's that? And she went, we've had to create the role of data stewards. And I said, really? And she said, well, if the data owners didn't have anybody to do the data governance things for, because if they asked the data product owners, they didn't normally work for them. The data product owners didn't see why they should look into data quality issues affecting the source data, because they only felt responsible for the product itself. So they found themselves in just a bit of a loop of who was actually willing to do anything. So by working with them and the conversations we had, I kind of feel quite strongly you need your traditional roles, but we need to define how they work with the data product owner and make sure we have that relationship documented. And as you say, I love I love many things about data products. I love the data democratization, making it more accessible to users, everything. But I really love the fact that it almost forces the issue of data governance up front. There's no more of the I'm not letting you and your data governance thing slowing down my data warehouse kind of thing. And we're carrying on anyway. It's kind of part of what it is the governance.
It totally makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you sort of think data product being a business thing, a thing of value. So anything that has value in your organization, you want to sort of define it, package it, and make sure it's sort of well protected. So having the subject matter experts create the catalogue of data products, define the governance policies associated with it, ensure that the quality is good throughout. It just makes sense. But I think it's not just having that sort of one role or one person. There's a collaboration. I think, again, as we talked about last time, that sort of business data steward, data product owner working closely with the data architects that can help them sort of define things. Same analogy as a sort of building architecture. It's that sort of collaboration of people, engineers, architects, consumers, stakeholders, etc.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why we both like data products so much, because we both come from our own respective data management disciplines, which are both disciplines that help break down silos and make people work together. And I think data products just help that as well, don't they? So it's one more tool, that's something that genuinely is valuable to our business users, but it helps us do what we've always believed to be important, is actually all these business areas have to talk to each other and articulate data requirements and perhaps why they can't deliver those requirements. But traditionally, people just moan about the report they get from, let's say, finance, but they don't actually go and tell finance that the data's rubbish. Whereas now we'd move to perhaps that is still a report in the way going forwards, but it might be a data product because other people in the organization might also find that data set useful, and it could be properly defined and properly controlled.
Yes. You said a phrase, breaking down silos there. And I think that's the one big thing that worries me about the sort of the data product story. So if you're going through the sort of the data mesh manifesto by Zamek Degani, she talks a lot about decentralization and sort of autonomy of the domains. But I think without some sort of coordination, some sort of federation, that what you were saying about sort of consistency and standardization across products and across domains, that's something that could be very much in danger. I think this is where the data architects working together with the data owners can really sort of help break down those silos and ensure that consistency.
Absolutely. So I think we're in agreement, which we kind of knew we would be, because I knew you'd be a great person to discuss data products. So we are running out of time, as we knew we would. And I think there's some really important questions we need to talk about. How do we actually make this real? Let's talk about the data product supply chain. And also, it's very easy when you talk to enthusiasts or to enthusiasts talk to make it sound really easy, and you just create a few data products and we'll all live happily ever after. Whereas in real life, there are some challenges to moving to perhaps a data product way of doing things. So we're definitely going to cover them on the next few episodes, aren't we? So I am really looking forward to continuing our conversation. Thank you so much, Jamie. It's been great talking about all things, well, maybe not all things, but a lot of things data product with you today.
Thanks again for having me.
And we'll see you next week.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
So I hope you found my conversation with Jamie really useful, giving you some insights into both products are, but perhaps what we may need to consider when we're doing data governance for them. So as you heard in that episode, we really only had time to scratch the surface. And so Jamie's joining me back next week, where we are going to be joined by a special guest from Calibra, Thibaut Collette, and we're going to start diving into actually how do we actually make things happen with data products. We're going to look at data product delivery. I do hope you join me then.